We are on a journey. We've been on this journey before, but this time, this journey feels different. We're on this journey because the world needs Texans now more than ever. What will we do to make an impact? Will we create opportunities for those most in need? Will we break down barriers of understanding? Will we expand the edge of human knowledge? To answer these questions, we cannot travel blindly. We must chart our path forward, and then, just maybe, we'll reach our destination as the premier comprehensive regional university in the nation. Students, faculty, staff, alumni, friends, and all who care about Tarleton State University. We need your ideas, your input, your expertise. What we learn from you will shape our future. Our journey ahead is exciting, and our greatest adventure awaits. Will you join us? We're looking ahead. Share your thoughts with us to help create Tarleton Forward 2030, our future-focused strategic plan. To learn more, visit tarleton.edu/ourfuture.
Good afternoon and welcome to Tarleton's Future Summit. I'm Becker, and I'm honored to be leading the strategic planning process and to be working with each of you to shape the next incredible decade at Tarleton. Our Strategic Planning Council has been hard at work to gather the ideas and feedback that will help shape our future and impact students for generations to come. At this time, I would like to take a few moments to recognize a few special guests who are joining us. Representing the business community, our President and CEO of the Fort Worth Chamber, Mr. Brandon Gengelbach. Representing Stephenville is Jeff Sanford, Alan Barnes, and Jason King. Representing the Tarleton Foundation, Mark McKenzie. And representing the Tarleton Alumni Association, Gabe Johnson, Jill Farr, and Lynn Reed. Everyone who's participating today, whether in person or online, faculty, staff, students, and community partners, we all have an important role to play. First, we'll hear from thought leaders on 4 big issues facing the university, and then we'll get an opportunity to collaborate with one another on ideas for moving forward. The work we do today will directly impact tomorrow, next year, and most certainly 10 years from now. Here to welcome us on behalf of the City of Fort Worth and on behalf of Mayor Betsy Price is Mayor Pro Tem Jungus Jordan. For over 15 years, Councilman Jordan has represented District 6 in the far south and southwest portions of Fort Worth, and he is a respected and leading voice in one of the fastest growing cities in the nation, which also happens to be his hometown. A retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, Councilman Jordan is known for his servant leadership and commitment to education, and he was instrumental in the launching of Tarleton's beautiful new campus off of Chisholm Trail Parkway. He's earned honors for numerous civic and charitable contributions in Fort Worth, and he's a true friend to Tarleton State. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Pro Tem Jungus Jordan to the podium.
Thank you, Credence. Good afternoon. Mayor Price sends her regrets, and we send her wishes for a quick recovery as well. But she also gave me a requirement in that I can't just say good afternoon, I have to say howdy. It's great to be here. It's great to be with the folks at Tarleton. I was born and raised here, and I hope you all feel the same way about your hometown as I feel about mine. I believe we're the greatest city and the greatest state and the greatest nation on God's earth. We're the greatest city because we have people that work with each other, build relationships, and work with respect to keep our city a small town. We're a great state because we all still remember the Alamo. And we're a great country because we have men and women that will don the uniform to defend our Constitution and the freedoms that we enjoy every day. It's important to to talk about Fort Worth. I think Dr. Hurley told me there are some people in Stephenville that still think of Fort Worth as a suburb. We'll set the record straight a little later. We are fastly growing as a city, and Brandon will be, in my estimation, over 1 million people in this next census. So we'll surpass a lot of other cities and will become number 12. That growth presents a lot of challenges because, like Tarleton State, we enjoy being a small town. We enjoy being a small campus with a lot of students, or maybe not even a small campus anymore. But there's a long-standing relationship between the city of Fort Worth and Tarleton State University. One of our former mayors, Mike Moncrief, was the, I guess you call them Texans now, but he was the mascot and was the model for the horse and rider on campus. We're proud as punch to have the campus in Southwest Fort Worth that's growing, soon to have a second building under construction and a third hopefully in the plans. Tarleton's been here for a long time, and I think there's a lot of relationship between the university and the city of Fort Worth in that we have a culture that's very similar. And the biggest problem that is created by the challenges is the future and what the future holds for us. And there is a Chinese proverb that I think it was actually a curse that said, "May you live in interesting times." And if 2020 has not demonstrated that we are living in interesting times, I don't know what will. But there is also a proverb that says, without vision, the people perish. Excuse me, I'll get that out right. Without vision, the people perish. We don't want that to happen, so we need leadership. Being a grandparent, you soon learn it's not about you anymore. It's about the future. And that's the purpose we have today. And what we need for the future are leaders that think about the future. Draw on history, draw on the present, but face the challenges of tomorrow before they happen. If you could phrase, what is education? And this is my own definition. Education is about the future. Everything we learn, everything we do is about taking care of our country, our world, our state, our city, our home, our family for the future. In order to do that, we need leadership. We need strong leadership. I could sit here and read Dr. James Hurley's bio, but I think all of you know his bio. Rest it to say he's one smart dude. And he's here to talk to you today about planning for the future. And it's an honor to know him. When I first met him, all he wanted to talk about was, when were we going to put that exit on Chisholm Trail Parkway? And we're going to do it in the very near future. So I'm going to turn it over. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being in Fort Worth. And just remember, we are not a suburb of Stephenville.
Thank you, Jungus, and more importantly, thank you for getting that off-ramp right into our parking lot, right into our gorgeous campus. And I do want to thank Jungus. I'm going to thank him more appropriately in a moment. Well, welcome, Texans, and a special welcome to those who are here that are not Texans, but I know everyone in this room wants to be a Texan today. I want to start by thanking Credence Becker and her team for putting together this outstanding learning summit. If we sit and think about the complexity behind an event, but a complexity behind a COVID-19 event is something else. And so I would like for Dr. Becker and her team and everyone that's standing in the back and everyone that has been behind the scenes to stand up and allow those that are here for us to display our sincere appreciation, and I know virtually everyone joins us in thanking them for pulling off a spectacular day. So, Credence, would you and your team stand and allow us to say thank you? Job well done. I want to recognize and thank the support of our federal, state, and local leaders. A lot of our local, federal, and state leaders are obviously planning for sessions. Congressman Williams in D.C., I watched him on the floor yesterday, represents not only the city of Fort Worth, part of the city, but he represents us in Stephenville as well. Former state senator and newly elected Congressman Pat Fallon. Pat has been a friend of Tarleton State University. He will be a friend to our institution in D.C. Senators Jane Nelson and Beverly Powell, we appreciate their friendship, support. Our state representatives, and these aren't just our Erath County state representatives, but since we're here in Fort Worth, I want to recognize Shelby Slauson, Dwayne Burns, Representative Goldman, and Representative Guerin. All of our representatives work extremely hard, and some of us that are main campus based don't realize how much work the other reps put into making sure that Tarleton State is recognized and represented at the highest level. And last and certainly not least, I want to especially thank Mayor Price. She was so excited about this event. She was so excited about this event because she wanted to tell a story on me. There was a highly likelihood that I wasn't going to escape the first 1 minute of our interview in Fort Worth, Dallas. Right? I got that right, Jungus. It's not Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. She reminds me it's Fort Worth, Dallas Airport. And when I sat down for my interview, Credence was there. Some of you in this room were on the search committee. Mayor Price was on the search committee, and I know she's watching, so she'll appreciate this. She was immediately to my left beside Dwayne Mayfield. And I knew better, and I had rehearsed this walking in, and I sat down, and they welcomed me, and I said, well, thank you for allowing me to spend an hour and a half with you here in Dallas. Yeah. So, Jungus, you said I was so smart. I'm not really smart at all, and everyone in this room already knows that. And I quickly thought, oh, wow. And she, with those cutting eyes that the mayor can often have when she disagrees with you, in a loving way, she said, well, Dr. Hurley, I'm sorry things aren't going to go well for you today. You're in Fort Worth, and the airport's in Fort Worth. We just attached the name Dallas by happenstance. So I folded my book. This is a true story, and I said, I will not waste an hour and a half of your time. Kenny Weldon was in the room. He's shaking his head. And I was going to get up and leave because I truly thought I had blown it that early. She was going to tell that story, so I beat her to it. Jungus, thank you. Thank you for your relentless efforts in promoting Tarleton in your district, District 6. We are blessed to have one of the best councilmen in all of Texas. He bleeds multiple purples, as he should, and that's okay. He's got his Tarleton purple, not TCU purple on today. And we're thankful for Jungus and all that he stands for, and he represents young people at the highest level. And now the stars of the day, our distinguished panel of speakers. Each will be properly introduced momentarily, but I want to take a moment just to thank them on behalf of our entire Tarleton State University family. Dr. Mark Becker, Athletic Director Chris Del Conte, Dr. Blake Decker, and Dr. Rachael Capp. We know her as Dr. Capp. I want to say thank you. You will be properly introduced. We will all be able to say thank you, but I don't think we understand Dr. Becker's schedule, flying from Georgia this morning, flying back out tonight. AD Del Conte had to literally fly to Indianapolis for NCAA meetings, flying back in this morning to make this event for us. We're extremely grateful for their time and their dedication to higher ed. It speaks volumes about their character and the leaders they are. This is an exciting time for our university. There's no better time to plan for the next 10 years. If you think about all that's happened in the last, call it 9 months, it has certainly reshaped higher ed. The new normal moving forward, none of us know. And for us to pretend that we know would be more or less a facetious lie, because we don't know what tomorrow looks like in this COVID environment. What we do know is we have to define our future. We cannot allow the circumstance around COVID-19 to define our future. On top of, we're in probably the most important census in the history of Texas, certainly, in the history of the United States. So using the demographic information that we're going to glean from the census to be able to plan for the next 10 years makes incredible sense for us. We've had a mantra, Jungus, at Tarleton over the last 6 months. We are going to grow our way out of this pandemic, and we have. We celebrate record enrollment this year. We broke 14,000, I think 300 plus students this 8 weeks. We have the most diverse and the largest freshman class in the history of our institution. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a good thing. But we have to define our future. So without further ado, let's get focused on discovery, learning, and growing. I have the great honor and privilege to have my friend and colleague, Georgia State University President Dr. Mark Becker, kick off this afternoon's Future Summit. Dr. Becker, thank you for making this trip to Texas. You've been here many times. In fact, he shared with me this morning he has donors and supporters of his institution, graduates of his institution that are here in the great city of Fort Worth. He, too, is a first-generation graduate. Dr. Becker leads the third most innovative university in the country, according to the rankings by U.S. News and World Report. He truly understands the hard work that goes into the strategic planning process, and we're going to learn about that today. He gets the challenges that come with fostering a culture of innovation while staying true to an institution's time-honored traditions. Sounds familiar in this room, right? At a workplace that promotes and rewards personal growth and collaboration, and you have the ticket to the next level. Under President Becker's leadership, Georgia State has adopted a dynamic 10-year plan that's fueling its emergence as a premier urban research institution across the country. Sounds a lot like our vision to become the premier comprehensive regional university in the nation. Graduation rates are up 22% at Georgia State under his leadership. 22%. That's unheard of in higher education. And the school ranks first in the nation, first among nonprofit universities in graduating African American students and underrepresented students. Please join me in welcoming one of the most dynamic presidents, and in my humble opinion, I think he's one of the top 2 or 3 presidents in the United States. We're blessed to have Dr. Becker. Please join me in giving him a big Texan welcome, Dr. Mark Becker.
Well, thank you, President Hurley, for that introduction, and this is on. Very good. Okay, terrific. So I want to start off by saying I actually like the title of this talk because it's full of tension. The word innovation is all about change, and the word about traditions is all about stability and holding on and keeping from the past to the future. And when you have good tension, you have a good story. And so today, I'm going to tell you at least parts of a Georgia State story. This is the book cover. A book came out in August, Won't Lose This Dream by Andrew Gumbel, available on Amazon.com. Won't Lose This Dream, but what I love about this story is the subtitle, How an Upstart Urban University Rewrote the Rules of a Broken System. Okay, what does that mean? What it means is that the university literally changed the national conversation on what we now call student success. In fact, the 10-year strategic plan that President Hurley referred to was 10 years ago. So we're just at the end of that as the university prepares for its next strategic plan. But 10 years ago, people didn't even use the word student success. They talked about retention and graduation rates. 10 years ago, we were a very typical urban university, which meant that of the students who started with us, less than half ever made it to graduation. Of the students who started with us, if they were African American, Latino, Latina, Hispanic, they had much lower chances of graduation. And that was the national conversation. That was the norm. For more than a decade, universities had been trying to move the needle on that question, but the movement was almost non-existent. And then 10 years ago, in our strategic plan, we decided to take on this issue and put ourselves out there on the line. This is that story, and it's full of tension. This is a good story. It has tension, it has politics, it has athletics, it has a villain. The author was so happy when he found his villain. He came back to us and said, as I researched this book, a good book needs a villain. I found the villain. But most importantly for today, this story actually starts with where you are right now, a strategic planning process to commit the institution to accomplishing something much more than it has ever been before in 10 years. But before I go to the strategic plan, I want to lay a little bit of the ground, because it is in order to talk about what future you're going to create, where you will be in 10 years, you also need to take an assessment of who you are and what is in your DNA. And at the same time, what makes you restless. So 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago, as a brand new president, I embarked on a series of structured interviews with campus leaders, faculty, staff, and students. And I had a series of questions. These were the first two, and these are the two that are important for today and for this conversation. What do you most value about Georgia State University, about our university? And what do you most want to see change? And the answers were much broader than I anticipated. When you think you're going to go out and talk to dozens of faculty, vice presidents, deans, students, administrators, staff, you're expecting to get lots of opinions. On the first question, every single person except for one, and it's because the one didn't understand the question, every single person said the diversity of our student body. And most of them actually went further. They said, that includes race and ethnicity, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's race, it's ethnicity, it's the adult students we have, it's the working moms and dads that have come back to school to get their educations. It's the military veterans who have returned from their service to our country who are in our student body. We have a very large military learner population. It's the fact that some of our students are homeless and other students of ours are from some of the richest people in metropolitan Atlanta. It's the fact that we have students from every county in the state of Georgia, every state in the United States, and 130 nations of the world. We have every kind of diversity you can imagine, and that matters to us. And it mattered, and it was palpable, I could tell, particularly in the faculty, it mattered in a way that I had never encountered in my career in higher education, and I've been at this a long time. Took my first faculty position in 1985. Okay, so I knew there was something there. And I knew when people said to me, well, you need to make us like the University of Georgia, I knew they were wrong, because we had something they didn't have in Athens, Georgia. But the second question, what do you want to see change? There were a few different answers, but one of the most prominent answers was, we're tired of being called the best kept secret in Atlanta. We're a really good university. We don't get credit for it, and we're tired of it. And we want you to go out there and tell the world how wonderful we are. The problem with that is, if you want the world to know how wonderful you are, you actually have to do something that the world's going to pay attention to. So let's go to the strategic plan. Now, what I've started off with here, that actually on the, what's your right side of the screen, that is our strategic plan. On the left side is a dictionary definition of the word strategic, and I like this definition, and I want to emphasize this. Carefully designed to serve a particular purpose or advantage. Because that answer about what do you most value was one of our advantages, is one of our advantages. Our students are different, and they're important. Our other advantage is we sit in a large metropolitan area of roughly 6 million people with lots of Fortune 500 companies, and we have an airport around too, Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. We knew what our advantages were, and we needed a plan that built on those. Now, I'm not going to go into this whole plan, but that literally is the plan. So I will say that when we started, we had an event like this, and I got to stand up on a stage like this. As president, I did not manage the process, but I set out certain expectations. There would be no more than 5 goals, because the goal would be that everybody at the university would know, and always know what are our goals, what are our priorities. And you can't remember more than 5. Most people can anyway. Secondarily, the decisions I will make as president are going to be tied to accomplishing what we set out to do in the strategic plan. So we're not going to be able to do more than 5 things. And it has to fit on one sheet of paper. And then later on, we realized we had to write it in plain English because it was written in academic jargon. And as we were told, it sounds impressive, we don't know what it says, and we don't know why we should care. Okay, but I am going to spend a minute on goal number 1. Because we did know that we had a retention and graduation problem, so we set out as a goal to improve retention and graduation rates. We actually decided to go bigger than that. Become a national model for undergraduate education by demonstrating that students from all backgrounds can achieve academic and career success at high rates. It's got the diversity in there. It's all backgrounds. It's every student, regardless of where they come from. And we're not going to be the best kept secret because we've set the goal of being a national model. Now, that made people really nervous, and they told me so. I said, it's okay. We do this, we'll change the world. It's worth trying. I also told them that in order to do something that had never been done before, we were going to have to change as an institution. We were going to have to change as we work, how we work. Because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're not going to get different results. This is Einstein's definition of insanity. So very clearly from the outset, we are going to be a different institution. We are going to change how we do some things. Otherwise, we are insane, and we don't want to be insane. Okay. And I told them we were going to need to think different. Do we have the audio? Yeah. Okay, we don't have the audio on that. Okay, yeah.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
So I stole this from Apple Computer. 1997, Steve Jobs has returned to Apple Computer as CEO after having been fired some years before and gone off into the wilderness to do other things. He's come back, and he wants to create the most innovative company in the world, the most innovative technology company. History tells us he actually did that. We won't go into how he did it. But I like that because it set the tone that we were going to have to think differently. If we were going to actually achieve the results we laid out in our strategic plan, we were going to change. We were going to need to think differently about how we approach our university and what we do. So if we get, no, one more, okay. So last slide. So an innovation culture is what we have created. So I just want to spend my remaining time to talk about innovation. Drivers of innovation. What is innovation? It's one of the most overused words in the English language today. Everybody's saying this is innovative, that's innovative, I want to be innovative. Nobody wakes up in the morning being innovative. Innovation is finding solutions to problems for which a solution does not exist, or the existing solution is cost prohibitive, and you need to find another way. You go to solve a problem, you innovate when there basically isn't any other way to get there. Impediments to innovation. In the last 5 years, we've had over 500 universities, as well as delegations from Europe, Africa, South America, and Asia, come to Georgia State to look at our model for student success, how we do what we do. We use innovative technologies. but they want to know how we use them, because there are a lot of universities that have bought the same software we have that don't have our results, because they still do what they'd always done. They just have different software. The biggest impediment, and they tell us to us again and again, is this is really cool. I wish I could take this back to my university, but this person won't like it, or that person won't like it. The biggest impediment to innovation is doing things the way we've always done them. You have to move beyond that to get innovative. So to create a culture of innovation, we think big, we think different. We don't do what everybody else is doing. Try to figure out how to get there in some way, whatever way it may take. And along the way, throughout this entire journey, throughout this story, we have always tied it back to our history and our legacy. And the fact as a university, we're actually not as old as Tarleton, but we're 1913. The very fact that our university, which started as a part-time evening school in 1913, has survived 5 wars, the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the War on Terror, has survived the Great Depression, has survived we actually did all this work starting in the Great Recession. The economic crisis of 2008, 2009 is when we started this work. And through all this turmoil and all this history and all this disruption, we've only always gotten better. So it's able to tie back the fact that how far we have come and what we have become, that does not limit what we can be. And to summarize the story, is a faculty member said to me a couple years ago that he knew we had changed as an institution when he realized in a faculty meeting in his department how the comments around what they could do had changed. He said when he was hired at Georgia State and somebody would have a bold idea and say, we should do this, the answer would be, we can't do that. We're only Georgia State. We don't do things like that. And he says, today, the answer is, we have to do that. We're Georgia State. That's who we are. We take on big things. We go out and figure out how to do them. That is that is what it means to be innovative, is to think up and basically figure out there is nothing you cannot do, nothing you cannot be, as long as you're willing to figure out how to do it, which may require you to think and work differently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Becker, for sharing your knowledge with us. For those that I've not had an opportunity to meet, my name is Darrell Brown, and I serve as the Executive Director for Student Affairs. What a great honor this afternoon that I have to introduce a top Texas data analytics expert to talk with us about leveraging economic partnerships for student success based on data-informed decisions. Dr. Blake Decker serves as Assistant Vice Chancellor in Academic Affairs for Data Science for the Texas A&M University System in College Station. He works closely with the members of the system's budgets, accounting, and academic and student affairs teams, using statistical and machine learning methodologies to analyze data from across the system's 11 universities and 7 state agencies. With more than a dozen years in higher education administration, Dr. Decker knows firsthand the value of partnering with businesses and industry to spur regional growth and job creation. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Blake Decker.
Hello, my name is Blake, and I am a recovering high school English teacher. 12 years, 8 months, and 19 days, but who's counting? I also learned this week that you do not answer a text by Credence Baker on Friday afternoon at 3:47 p.m., or you may end up being on stage 6 days later. So I come to you with greetings from the Texas A&M University system. How did I get into the English classroom? Well, it's the J word, and whether you are on the right or the left of the political spectrum, You're either going to think journalism and you're going to woohoo, or you're going to think journalism and you think. Journalism was my pathway into the English classroom, but it set me up for later success in life. Because what it taught me to do was to take multiple sources of information and data, merge it into an informative piece, hopefully, that the readers could understand, interpret, and then potentially utilize. Sounds a lot like what I do on a daily basis in my role as a data scientist. See, when I was an undergraduate and had multiple undergraduate advisors, because you know when you change majors officially 6 times, that tends to happen. But if I had an undergrad advisor say, Blake, I think you need to be a data scientist, and I was taking mass communication and journalism and business, all those courses, I would have been, you're crazy. One of the biggest reasons was because data science wasn't a thing 20 plus years ago. And as universities, as institutions of higher education, we are establishing patterns of success in students' lives for jobs that do not exist as of right now, for many of them. And it's not our responsibility as institutions of higher ed to define what success is for every student in the future, because it's going to look different for those students based on their circumstances and where they've come from, but where they're going. What our responsibility is to pour our resources, our time, our energy, our efforts into them so that we can set them up for success in the future. So I hope the next few hours, as we're talking around these big 4 topics, but in general, thinking forward to 2030 with this strategic plan, that will be the driving force of all of our conversations, is how are we promoting student success now, while we have them on our campus, but into the future for things we have no idea that they're going to face. Because when I look at Tarleton as one of the members of our great system in the state of Texas, Mr. Del Conte may speak otherwise, as a great system, we have many parts, and every institution has a role to play. And this institution is establishing a pattern for other institutions to follow. And if it becomes the premier comprehensive regional university in the nation, it won't just be this system that looks towards Tarleton. It will be national recognition. It will be the things that you are striving to be. Now, when we look at how we get there, the topic that I was asked to look at was leveraging economic partnerships for student success. You'll notice that the student success piece is in purple because that's the key. This is just one component to how we may get there. And so a shout out goes to my colleague at MC who helped me pull some data, pull together some of the information, and be able to talk about how can we leverage economic partnerships for student success. EAB came out with a white paper recently that was very timely for me, especially, but also I think for higher ed in general, that laid out 7 practices to grow employer partnerships. I'm not going to go through all 7. I'm going to focus on the 3rd one, and I'll zoom in just a second. Leveraging labor intelligence to identify and motivate partners. We are data rich and information poor in so many ways. We have a lot of data, but are we taking that data and turning it into intelligible for one, but also informative for another, so that we can make decisions that are helping students be successful? How many of you know where your students, graduates, live after they leave Tarleton? Well, based on public profiles that are available on LinkedIn and some other sites, the density in what I'm calling the Tarleton Triangle between Fort Worth, Dallas, make sure I say that right, Fort Worth, Dallas, Stephenville, and Waco, there are 13,000 graduate profiles in the database. Notice the size of the circles in the specific areas. So Dallas does have the largest proportion. But what this tells us is we have data that indicate where our graduates are living. That's an important data point. We need to know that because we need to know where to go in order to potentially recruit for new campuses that come online, such as in Fort Worth, but also where are we marketing our programs for generations to come of Tarleton graduates? Because we want that first generation student, but we want that second generation Tarleton student as well. And we need to know where to go to get them. So public profiles, that's where do they live? Out of these folks, who is hiring them? The city of Fort Worth is one of the top employers of Tarleton State University graduates. The number one, which is in the center, is your own university. You hire more of your graduates than any specific entity based on these data points. You see the other ones here. So when we talk about leveraging partnerships, we need to know who we should be working with, who we need to go and talk to, who we need to really strategize around improving student success, because they're the people who can tell us we need to be doing something better in how we are developing our students. So these are just a handful of the top 10. So not only do we know where they live, but we also can know where they work, but we also can use data to inform our future decisions about what programs to offer. And so in talking to some of your leadership, one of the potential programs is a doctorate in business administration. What does that look like? What data can we see? What can we look at from a data perspective that will help inform what we ultimately do with this program of study? So the first thing to look at would potentially be, what's the competitive landscape? So the Doctor of Business Administration that is currently being discussed, there is only one other university that graduated students in the 2019 with that specific degree in the Tarleton Triangle. There are 14 graduates. I think that program currently enrolls about 80 folks as of 2019. So what the competitive landscape, the data show that there is not as much competition for this degree as there may be others within your region of influence. Data about job postings is also vitally important for understanding what's the potential for student success once they get that degree. Now, these are the postings in the Tarleton Triangle that are attached to the specific zip code that goes with this degree. Not just at the doctoral level, but also bachelor's and master's. But you can see that in this, the average monthly postings for this domain, there were over 5,000 a month for a business administration degree. But only 3,155 hires. That means that there are 1,800 more job openings than people to fill them. So there is a potential demand gap there. What does this look like over time? So you can see that across the bottom there's a fairly stable dark color that is showing the estimated hires per month, but you'll notice the light blue bars that go up across the screen are at almost 7,000 a little over a year ago. So 7,000 postings, but still only about 3,100 hires. So what does the job demand look like? We can know that through the data that we analyze. So who are the companies that are posting within this domain? Wells Fargo, Deloitte, and then you can down the list. So in the previous slides, we saw who already is hiring Tarleton grads. In this one, we say, okay, who could we potentially partner with because they're looking for talent? These are the companies who are seeking out graduates who have certain characteristics, skills, and knowledge that they want to incorporate into their companies. And you'll notice the number on the left-hand side is the total number of postings by that company for those jobs. On the right is the unique. So they're posting 10 times for one position, basically, at Wells Fargo. That means there is high demand. These data points can help inform the discussions around what programs we should be offering and when. So for the doctorate in business administration, there were specifically the top 3 occupations in the data that are mapped to the doctoral level of a program. So management analysts, the 1,059 jobs in 2019, annual openings of 134. But look at the far right. The growth from 2019 to 2030, and this is important because you're talking about a strategic plan that will run through 2030, 23% growth in that job occupation. That's important information to have because that is going to establish whether that is an area that is going to increase, not decrease, because we see a lot of occupations that are decreasing. Now, skills in higher ed can be a dirty word among academics, and I understand that. But when we're talking about how do we talk with our partners about increasing our student success, it is about skills. The students want skills, they have skills, employers, they're seeking skills. As institutions, we are teaching skills. How do we make those jumps between those groups? One way is to look at data that show the job postings and the skills that are being asked for by the companies, and then the frequency in the profiles. So the dark color at the top, those are the frequencies and postings for data analysis. The lighter bar below is the frequency in the profiles. So the employees are listing data analysis as at a rate of about 4% in their profiles, whereas the postings for data analysis are at about 13%. That's a big gap. And that can inform you as curriculum and instruction specialist on what you need to be doing in terms of preparing your students for that work and that role. So the previous were top hard skills in the top left, top common skills, or we may think of soft skills. You can look at these, and you come to the third one, communications. There's a huge gap in what the companies are wanting and what the profiles are showing. This can also inform how you integratively work across your curriculum with maybe your liberal arts, humanities folks, and ensuring that in your business administration courses, the things that are gapped here as far as these soft skills are being addressed. So as we go into the breakout session in just a few minutes, I want to reemphasize student success is the key to this, and leveraging economic partnerships is just one method of how we get there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Dector. All right, so next I'm going to be introducing Dr. Rachael Capua, but many know her as Dr. Capp. She is committed to helping college and grad students go from isolation to community, self-doubt to encouragement, and from questioning to empowered. Dr. Capp is the founding director of College and Career Services for the Tarrant To and Through Partnership, or T3, and she joins us this afternoon with insights to enhance the student experience through efficient processes, centralized information, and personalized services, all ingredients to move Tarleton through 2030 and beyond. Launched this fall, T3 is a collaboration of school districts, higher education institutions, employers, nonprofits, foundations, and community volunteers determined to see all students excel to and through the education pipeline. Dr. Capp's own journey navigating the challenges of higher education led to her professional passion and career, both at 2-year and 4-year institutions, including TCC and TCU. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rachael Capua.
Oh, Brooke, thank you so much for the kind introduction. And albeit virtual, I am so grateful to be with you all today. So I actually want to start with a quick exercise. I'd like to ask that if you are physically in the room right now, turn to the person to your right and tell them, I am so glad you're here. That's right. Turn to the person to your right and tell them, I am so glad you're here. And those of us who may be virtual, maybe we're in our home offices or we're at the office, you can repeat to yourself, I am so glad I am here. So here's the reason for this, right? The reason why our work is so important today is that every conversation, every brainstorm, every opportunity to think and build and create and innovate and discuss important topics like we're doing today, the future-focused Tarleton has the potential to change a student's life. And dare I say, our work together can change the trajectory, really, of a family for generations and generations. So that's why enhancing the student experience at Tarleton and being engaged in this process is so critical. I stand before you today as a community college graduate. I stand before you as a second generation Mexican American who quite honestly didn't want to be another statistic or a cautionary tale. I stand before you as the granddaughter to a grandfather with a middle school education. As the daughter of a single mom for most of my life who always encouraged my sister and I to dream big, to do big, to go after the hard things, and to stay relentless in our pursuit for our ambitions and our goals, building character and grit and gumption. I'm also the daughter of a student veteran, and I remember so vividly watching my father cross the graduation stage. He would work during the day and go to school at night, and watching him pursue his dreams after finishing his time in the service was one experience that I would have taken with me forever. And let me actually introduce you to another veteran. This on the screen is my Uncle Roy. Master Sergeant Roy P. Benavides was an orphan, later Medal of Honor recipient, the first Hispanic GI Joe who actually dropped out of school at the age of 15 to help support our family. When President Reagan, who you see in this picture, asked him to travel the country after he got out of the Army, the one thing he always came back to was the value of education. See, whatever your why is, whatever brings you to these conversations about enhancing the student experience or fostering culture of innovation or leveraging economic partnerships, which you've already heard about, always come back knowing that our work as educators, as supporters, as advocates is and will be, and I'll repeat that, will be life-changing. So here's the thing. This number that you see on the screen, 23%, that's the number of 8th graders in Tarrant County graduating with a college degree or credential. And unfortunately, the trend only intensifies when we look at students from economically disadvantaged households, and it drops to 14%. This is why I am so personally encouraged by the work Tarleton is doing to think forward. As one of our first universities in the Tarrant 2 and Through partnership, together, you and us, Tarleton and T3, we will help change the narrative that we just heard about, the 23%, the 14%. Access to post-secondary pathways is just as important as persistence and completion. That's where you all in this room come in. Enhancing the student experience means closing the information gap, the guidance gap, and the financial aid gap to help students move to and through college and career. So more to come about T3 in the coming months, but know how honored we are to work with you, to serve alongside you in this important cause. So before I provide some tangible takeaways, let me come back to my own student experience for just a moment. As a first semester transfer student from a community college, actually to a 4-year institution similar size to Tarleton, I have to be completely honest, I was lost. Good thing I wasn't the pilot of the airplane, because I was searching for a sense of community, belonging, resources, information in a very new place with so many questions. For any new student, first year or transfer, the power of one faculty member, one staff member, a new process, a communication channel, a new platform, all the things that you're working to do, all the things that you're talking about and will talk about this afternoon and months and weeks moving forward, all this effort helps students persist. But we can't do it alone. We can't do it in silos. We have to work together. You know, one of my favorite proverbs is actually an African proverb, and it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that, Tarleton, is what we have to do. We have to go together. Every pursuit, every cause, every conversation, we have to be at the table, even if it's virtual, at the virtual table together, because together is how we will make things happen, with students always at the forefront. So as I conclude, here are some tangible takeaways from my own work in communications and my own research and learning and serving alongside students at 2-year institutions, 4-year institutions, and now in the philanthropic and education arm. A future-forward Tarleton enhances the student experience by meeting simply students where they are. You have to meet students and families where they are. Helping more case studies of their stories, of student stories, versus having cautionary tales. Working together and not divided or in silos. Remembering that activity for the sake of just activity is not progress. You have to be moving real work forward. When incorporating topics about diversity and equity and inclusion, get past the surface and dig deep, really deep with intention. A future-forward Tarleton enhances the student experience by keeping students a part of the process, not just today, but every day moving forward. When thinking about first-year students, don't forget about transfer students. They are a part of our community as well. And establishing systems of communication that are sustainable and measurable are not easy things to do, but they're the right things to do. A few other thoughts that have come to mind and I want to leave you with today is don't be the gas station, right? Don't be the gas station or the toll booth. Be the gas station in process, and you're moving forward. So despite what may be a setback, fill the gap, stop to evaluate, keep going when things get tough, because it's all about moving forward. That is the end goal, and that is where we're headed. And remember that every office, every employee, every person in this room or virtual space has a place in this work. So with that, Dr. Hurley and all who have made today possible, my sincere and heartfelt thanks for allowing me to be part of your day and your journey. I'm wishing each of you much success in taking Tarleton forward. And on behalf of my friend and fellow Horned Frog, now at the University of Texas at Austin, this thank you card is orange because I know you're about to hear from Chris next. I am grateful for the time. Onward and upward, and have a great day. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Capp, for speaking with us today, and I'm impressed. I can barely get on a Zoom meeting and figure out how to use Zoom, and Dr. Capp's up here moving around the screen, and somebody might have recruited her. I don't know if she went from here to there in a split second, but we appreciate her being with us virtually today, and it's my honor to introduce our next speaker. One of the things that I've enjoyed about being on the Strategic Planning Committee is it's truly been a process led by stakeholders, by faculty, by staff. We have students on the committee. Dr. Hurley and the administration gave us a charge that we want to be the premier comprehensive regional university in the state of Texas and beyond. That's the charge, and it's been up to us, the stakeholders and those involved in this process, to really make it happen. We've been engaged throughout the way. A few weeks ago, I got an email from Dr. Becker saying, who would be a good speaker to speak on our session about capitalizing on our move to NCAA Division I. I'll tell you who's at the top of my list is the gentleman that's about to speak. I won't tell you who was number 2 or number 3, but we gave her some great names, and I'm just so pleased and appreciate the fact that Chris could be here today and take time out of his busy schedule. I was writing my notes on the way over, and My first bullet point was it's my honor to introduce the best athletic director in the country. And then I looked over to my left, Dr. Hurley, and Lon Reesman was driving. I said, I better get my pen out and change that. And so the line is, it's my honor to introduce one of the best athletic directors in the country because I have to ride home with them and I need a job tomorrow. But in all seriousness, we're blessed to have a great athletic director at Tarleton, and we're honored to have one of the top athletic directors in the country. He's a two-time Division I Athletic Director of the Year. In 2015, he was the Under Armour Division I Athletic Director of the Year. Keep in mind, there's 357 NCAA Division I institutions, so that's a heck of a feat for him to accomplish that twice. He's in his second year at the University of Texas, his 14th year as an athletic director overall. At Texas, he spearheaded a $175 million renovation to the south end zone of Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium. He served here in Fort Worth as the athletic director at TCU for 8 years and led TCU from the Mountain West into the Big 12 in 2002. He started as an athletic director back in 2006 at Rice, where he spearheaded a $90 million capital campaign. He's a former student athlete at UC Santa Barbara, and we're so honored to have with us today the athletic director and vice president from the University of Texas, Chris Del Conte.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, you bet.
Hi, everybody. I don't got a fancy presentation. I'm not, but I am going to walk back and forth. Just like Rachael did. Isn't that hilarious? Time we're living in, isn't it? COVID, civil unrest, economic downturn, presidential election. Outcome. It's like The Perfect Storm, that movie with George Clooney. You remember that? They all went out fishing. They're on their way home and said, holy shit, what just happened now? And we're sitting here today. But what's today is about the future. And what I love about what is happening today is you're setting the course of what you want to become. Dr. Hurley, you're asking today to be the finest regional institution in the world. That is big and bold, especially in the triangle that you're in, right? In the triangle that you're in. And you've all come together today to share that vision. And you got to have that North Star, and you got to throw it on the ground and say, this is what we're going to become. Live it, breathe it, talk about it. You know, the president from Georgia State said, make it small. 4 or 5 things you can accomplish that when you get back here 10 years later, you said, yeah, we did that. But you better have an aha moment, a big, bold idea of what you want to do. Intercollegiate athletics plays a role in that. And we're the front porch. We welcome people to your campus. And when we get them on campus, we talk about what our goals are, what our future is. Athletics serves a huge role in the idea of the vision you say forward, whatever that may be. When I was at Texas Christian U, I was in an interview room, and Dr. Boschini says, can you do 2 things for me? Can you build us a football stadium and get us into a BCS conference? I was 0-9 at Rice. I'm like, hell yes, you're 9-0. Whatever you're hitting, I'm drinking. And you want to get us into a BCS conference. I left there, and I said, that man has a vision. TCU had an SAT average of 980. He says, we're not even ranked in the top 100. My goal is to make us one of the top 100 institutions in the country. There's 3,500 academic institutions in the country. I looked at him and said, do you want to go from the Mountain West to the Big 12 overnight? You want us to build a stadium, and yet you're going to take a regional institution where your thinking is now. Texas Christian U was a regional institution that had pockets of alums from Illinois and from Omaha, but really a regional institution. Fine private institution, established in 1873. Chancellor Boschini had a vision to make it a national institution. So we're going to be a world institution, we're going to be a national institution, we're going to be the top 100 academic institutions in the country. And sport is going to be the front porch to tell our story. And I need you to help us tell our story. I was so inspired by that individual, by that one leader that set vision for what we could be. and we went to work, but it was collectively in a room. He asked me, how are you going to raise money in the stadium? I said, you all are going to make it happen. Man is setting vision. You all today, the next 2 or 3 weeks, are going to corral together what that vision will look like, and you'll unite around it. You heard from 2 presidents. One at Georgia State took an institution that was floundering to one of the finest institutions that are in the country today. Why? Clear vision, but everyone bought in. If you're going to be the best regional institution in the country, bold statement, then you better buy in. All in. When you're on that diving board, you better just jump off and hopefully there's some damn water. You'll just, jackknife, see what happens. Right? You better see what happens. That's the idea. Right? This is all for naught if you don't buy in. What's happening today, just words. It's like having a Bible on your desk. If you don't read it, it's just words. If you don't live it, you don't breathe it, you enact on it, it's just words. The athletic department, our job is to be the front porch, welcome people to campus. The University of Texas, what I tell you is to celebrate my Texas. We welcome 100,000 people to the University of Texas on a football game day. And the first thing we do is we tell our story of our great institution. We tell our story, what the university is all about. And our mantra is, what starts here changes the world. You bring them in, you tell your story. They go home, they understand your story, your vision. The athletic department is the front porch. The main thing is the house. That's the university. And your alumni association is the back porch. You come back and tell stories of how good you were. And lie your ass off about how good you were back in the day. Right? But that's that connection of sending the next generation back to that institution. So the most important thing is establishing who you are today. Division I athletics and the bold vision you have for your athletic program is phenomenal. But it only works if you support it, and it only works if it lives the values that you want to achieve. So Dr. Hurley, when you made this idea that you're going to be a Division I athletic program and you want to go to Division I football, I love that. That is phenomenal. Can you imagine Texas Christian U playing the mighty Texans, home and home? That would be a hell of a game, right? Home and home in basketball, playing in sports, but it's the front porch. But you got a dream. Set your stake in the ground, but you make sure your athletic program follows your orders. And when a welcome on your campus is delivering your message of what you want it to be. A campaign that is, or a vision of 30 years or 2030, I've never been a big strategic plan of farther than 2 or 3 years, probably because I suffer from ADD, right? And we get covered on wins and losses constantly. So it can change in a hurry. You're 5-0, everyone loves you. Success has 1,000 friends. Failure's an orphan, right? So every time you hire someone, everyone's there, that's a hell of a hire. Then when he screws up, that bum hired him. But an academic strategic plan sets the course for all to follow. And you look at what happened at Georgia State, they set a course 10 years ago, and what happened today. What you are doing today is important work, critical work for the future of this institution. Sport is going to play a big part of that because it's going to help tell your story. But the most important thing is to focus on the AHA goal. Dr. Hurley, what's the AHA goal? To become the premier comprehensive regional university in the country. You ought to shout that every single time. What is our goal? To be the premier regional institution in the country. That's that AHA goal. Today, our focus is how are we going to get there? Lay out the plan. Lay it out. We're here just to give you the rah-rah speech. Y'all got a lot of work to do. You got to figure out whose ass you're going to kick to get that goal. Right? Who's in front of you? Identify the 5, 10, 15 regional institutions in the country that are your competition. Identify them. What are they doing better than you? We just got a presentation about a major that we should have. There's 1,800 people that need to be deployed. I'd go make that number 1 right now. Right now. Identify what we are going to do. Set that goal. Find out the 5 to 15 institutions that are currently ranked higher than us, and every year, pick them off. Pick them off. So 2030, when we're sitting here, 10 years from now, we said, did we accomplish our goal? Here's the 30 or 10 or 15 that were ahead of us. Now we're number one. You just talked about Georgia State going from here to number one in 10 years. Make sure your goals are identifiable. Make sure your goals are achievable. But make sure their goals are so bold that this reunion today in 10 years was not for naught. Does that make sense? I can tell you an athletic program can play a big part of that. It will. Because it's going to be a big part of creating that sense of energy and pride in your institution. It's going to create that sense of pride that guess what, we accomplished something. And you know what? The success you've had athletically brings a lot of attention to your university. And the more successful they are, the more you get to tell your story of what your goals were. So this is important work. Dr. Hurley, I'm proud of the fact that you had me be here today, because what you're trying to do is lay out a plan for this most important institution, even though you belong to a system that is A&M. Right, I understand that, you know. Howdy, hook 'em, I get it. But the most important thing is that it's a system in our state that's educating our future young people. We have great competition with A&M in the athletic fields, but we respect each other for what we're doing for the state. And you're laying out a big, audacious goals. But remember, each and every one of you can play a huge part in that, right? Huge part of that. So enjoy your time today. Ask the right questions, but more importantly, invest your time and energy into making this really possible, that this has become the premier institution that you can all go back and say, I was part of that in 2020 during this massive pandemic and perfect storm that we're dealing with. Y'all got it? Apologize, I didn't bring any fancy stuff for y'all. All right, you guys be good. Hook 'em. I forgot my badge here. COVID, don't leave home without it.
Well, let's thank all of our speakers again, please. So they have given us a lot to unpack. So we have another portion of today, and that is for our in-person folks, breakout sessions based on topic. And for our online folks, you will, in just a moment, see a link on the screen for you to access to give us the same feedback that we're going to get from our breakout sessions. So thank you all to the online folks for joining us today. So now for our in-person breakout sessions, we're going to try to do this as safely as possible in terms of social distancing. So I want to release you sort of one group at a time. In your lanyard, you should see